The light was bad in room 202 of the Le Méridien Hotel, not just dim, but a bruised, yellow light that struggled against the thick, stale air. The cleaner found him at exactly 9 a.m., sprawled face down across the synthetic Persian rug. There was no blood splatter on the walls, no sign of forced entry, and no bullet casings. The scientist had been silenced with cold, efficient, blunt force trauma, delivered by something dense and hard, probably wrapped in cloth. The only things left were the faint scent of cheap perfume, the lingering aroma of stale cigarettes, and the terrifying implication. His name was Dr. Elias Zaki, a nuclear physicist crucial to the Iraqi weapons program. His briefcase, containing video-schematic data for the Asyric reactor, was gone. The disappearance of Zaki's Mindan, his knowledge meant that a sovereign nation's most dangerous technological aspiration had just been dismantled in a quiet Parisian hotel room, 3,500 miles from the front lines. Zaki wasn't merely murdered. He was, in the language of the Mossad, erased, turned into a ghost. To understand how a single operative achieved what an entire army dared not attempt, we must look further back, past the stench of cheap desperation and into the cold calculations of existential war. In Tel Aviv, the mood was one of quiet dread. It was 1980, and the countdown clock was audible only to those in the high command. Saddam Hussein, driven by oil wealth and limitless ambition, was fast approaching a threshold Israel could never permit: nuclear capability. The center of this threat was the Asyric research reactor, supplied and overseen by French technicians, scheduled to go critical in the next 2 years. If Asyric went online, the delicate balance of fear in the region would be instantly broken. The Israeli government had decided on a doctrine of preemption. The reactor had to be stopped. Physical destruction, a conventional airstrike, was one option, but politically explosive and highly risky. Intelligence suggested a more surgical path: dismantle the intellectual foundation first. The target was Dr. Elias Zaki. Brilliant, arrogant, and essential. Zaki was the linchpin, the only man fluent in both the French engineering specifications and the intricate demands of the Iraqi state. If Zaki vanished, the program would stutter by Israel Krushaltan and confirm the need for a kinetic solution later. Ejal, the unit chief for the operational man whose face was defined by lines of perpetual exhaustion, sat studying thermal images of Paris. Zaki was protected by layers of overlapping surveillance. Iraqi agents watching the French DST agents watching the Iraqis, and private security watching Zaki. "We cannot touch him through force," Ayal stated to his small team. "Paris is saturated. If we move heavy, we fail heavy." They needed an anomaly. They needed to manufacture a weakness, not technical, but psychological. They studied Zaki's life, finding the usual patterns of a high-security target: late night work, paranoid phone calls, and crucially, deep-seated loneliness. Despite his marriage and his national importance, Zaki routinely sought refuge in anonymity, specifically in clandestine meetings with high-end escorts during his frequent visits to Europe. The plan shifted from a snatch and grab to a subtle, psychological dismantling. They needed an operative who could not only enter Zaki's inner sanctum, but become the one thing Zaki could unresist: a distraction that felt like a reward. They selected Lina. She was not a field agent in the traditional sense, but an analyst with an unparalleled memory and a devastating ability to maintain character. She was chosen for her ability to project academic intelligence and cultivated boredom, the exact opposite of the hysteria that characterized Zaki's life. Lina's instructions were deceptively simple: become the distraction, acquire the critical schematics Zaki carried, and facilitate the final stage. The initial phase was pure, tedious observation. Day after day, Lina sat in a small cafe across the street from Zaki's residence. She memorized his routine, the way he hesitated before ordering a second coffee, the nervous habit of fidgeting with his wedding ring when talking on the phone. She was waiting for a crack, not a technical flaw in his security, but a human one. One afternoon, Zaki stopped at a street kiosk. Far from the polished Parisian boutiques he lingered, then bought a faded, poorly made wooden horse, a cheap toy, childish and completely out of character for the arrogant physicist. He slipped it into his expensive suit jacket pocket. Lina instantly logged the detail. It was a gesture of profound solitude. A crack. He was human, and therefore vulnerable. That small toy became their operational compass. The window of opportunity opened during a scheduled technical conference in the capital. Zaki would be isolated from his Iraqi security detail, relying only on the patchy surveillance provided by the French contacts, who were more interested in maintaining the illusion of compliance than in real protection. Lena engineered a meeting, a brief, professional encounter at the conference cocktail hour, followed by a casual invitation to discuss a highly specialized mathematical concept. The lure was intellectual, the packaging seductive. Zaki, flattered and isolated, agreed. The rendezvous was set for a private gallery near the Louvre, a public place with multiple escape routes. Eyal's extraction team, including 2 quick reaction specialists, were positioned. Everything was going according to the pre-agreed script. 10 minutes before Lena was due to meet Zaki, the secure, encrypted line from Lena's burner phone buzzed back in Tel Aviv. It was Zaki. He had texted Lena. Not the museum. Too busy. Meet me at La Meridian, room 202. Now don't tell anyone. This was not protocol. This was chaos. Eyal's blood ran cold. Zaki was testing her. Or he was paranoid. Or both. A hotel room eliminated all sidelines, minimized the window for intervention, and transformed the mission from a controlled acquisition into a lethal, unpredictable fight in a confined space. He wants to own the space. Eyal Mutared staring at the map. He is trying to assert control. They had 15 minutes to adjust the entire operation. Eyal had no choice but to authorize the change. Sending Lena to room 202 was a desperate gamble, betting that Zaki's arrogance outweighed his caution. Lena entered room 202 at 8:15 p.m. The air was thick, heavy with the scent of stale air conditioning, and Zaki's anxiety. Zaki didn't look like a man expecting a liaison. He looked like a scientist performing an unwelcome, stressful experiment. A wash, passing. The briefcase was placed carefully on the small desk, near the television. Lena sat down slowly on the edge of the bed, consciously moving to establish a non-threatening distance. She began the conversation, using the precise, technical jargon they had rehearsed. Zaki responded, his eyes fixed on hers, but his mind was running complex parallel calculations. The mission was simple: acquire the schematics and ensure Zaki could not report the loss. Lena waited for the precise moment when Zaki's focus narrowed on a specific, technical point. She raised. As his eyes glazed over with academic intensity, she moved. She didn't reach for the case. She reached for the lamp switch. The sudden shift in light, direction, a subtle, calculated move designed to break his concentration, worked for a single, fractional moment. In that instant, she lunged for the briefcase. But Zaki was faster. He must have recognized the flicker in her eyes' discipline, not desert when she reached. Zaki shouted, a high-pitched sound of pure rage and panic, overturning a heavy side table, which crashed against the wall. Thud, a muffled sound echoed down the hotel hallway. Failure. The mission was no longer silent. The entire floor, likely the entire hotel, was now a threat. Lena reacted instantly, falling back as Zaki lunged. He was large and fueled by adrenaline. She was trained to evade, not overpower. The priority was the briefcase. She maintained a defensive crouch, using the fallen table as a shield. Outside, in a parked van 100 yards away, Eyal heard the single, unmistakable sound of chaos over the surveillance microphone. Mission compromised. Noise, level, alpha. Mission is now hostile, Eyal whispered into the radio. Conventional procedure demanded immediate extraction, abandoning the target acquisition. But abandoning the mission meant Zaki would survive. The schematics would be moved, and the existential threat would persist. Eyal made the split-second, high-risk decision. Execute Chaos Protocol, Alpha. He ordered his 2 backup agents, Uri and David. Do it now. Create the wall. Uri and David rushed into the main lobby, 300 feet away, initiating a violent, fabricated argument near the concierge desk. Uri slammed his suitcase onto the marble floor. David screamed accusations about a stolen wallet. They escalated the situation rapidly, throwing a glass of ice against the wall. A champagne bottle shattered with a spectacular sound effect. A woman, completely uninvolved, screamed about her stolen passport. The hotel security team rushed the lobby. Uniformed French police were called instantly, rushing asterisk towards asterisk. The main entrance, an asterisk away, asterisk from the residential wing where room 202 was located. The chaos bought Lena the crucial 90 seconds. In the yellow light of room 202, Lena used Zaki's own bulk against him, guiding his furious charge toward the bed frame. The final operativa silent, anonymous technician who had entered the hotel, dressed as maintenance staff, slipped into the room during the height of the struggle. He was fast. Zaki never saw him coming. There was a sudden, sickening sound of impact. Zaki collapsed, silent, across the rug. The schematics were secured. The small, silent technician grabbed the briefcase and melted back into the service corridors. Lena surveyed the scene. Zaki was gone, erased. But the silence that followed the immediate violence now felt like a spotlight. They had created the distraction, but they still needed to vanish, leaving behind a clean narrative for the French police to digest. A narrative of random, opportunistic crime. Lena quickly wiped down every surface she had touched and exited room 202 through the main door, blending into the stunned hotel guests who were milling about, drawn by the distant commotion in the lobby. She was just another civilian leaving a room, perturbed by the noise. The drive out of Paris was a study in controlled, protracted terror. Lena was in the back of a nondescript French Peugeot driven by Yuri, one of the backup agents who had executed the lobby chaos. David followed in another vehicle, carrying the technical operative and the briefcase. They maintained a strict 60 kilometers per hour, blending with the sparse, late-night traffic heading towards the Belgian border. Every flashing billboard was a sign of pursuit, every distant siren a consequence rushing toward them. Ale had insisted on radio silence. The only sounds in the car were the low hum of the air conditioning and the rhythmic, maddening clicking of the turn signal. The psychological burden was immense. They were not escaping tanks or artillery. They were escaping the cold, analytical lens of modern forensics. Every nerve ending was hypersensitized. Did they forget a fiber, a hair? Did the hotel camera catch a glimpse of Yuri's profile? They drove for nearly 2 hours. The neon glow of the Parisian suburbs finally gave way to the dark, featureless fields of the countryside. Relief, thin and chemical, began to wash over them. They were as safe they had crossed the Rubicon. Then, the red and blue flashers appeared ahead. Not a high-speed chase. Not Mossad counterintelligence. Justa routine, asterisk, gendarmerie, asterisk checkpoint. Stopping cars randomly outside the small town of Campi. They were checking for DUI violations or simply running late-night checks. It was the most banal, and therefore the most terrifying, threat imaginable. The fate of the entire mission now rested on a simple, bureaucratic interaction. Uri! The driver swallowed hard. The metallic taste of fear filled his mouth. He pulled the Peugeot smoothly to the curb and rolled down the window. The police officer was young, bored, and slightly irritated by the cold night air. "Good evening. Papers, please." Uri handed over the pre-staged, perfectly forged Belgian identification documents. His hand was steady, a miracle of self-control. Lena stared fixedly out the side window, her face pale, affecting the look of a tired, bored passenger. The officer examined the papers, flicking his flashlight beam across Yuri's face, then briefly into the back seat. He registered Lena's presence, then glanced at the car interior. Specifically, the empty space where the briefcase containing the schematic should have been it was in the trunk of David's car, trailing 30 seconds behind them. The officer paused. The silence stretched, thick and painful. For 5 full seconds, he seemed about to ask a follow-up question. Yuri's mind raced through the dozens of pre-planned responses for a general interrogation. The officer sighed, handed the papers back. "Drive carefully. Have a good night." Uri nodded slowly. He didn't speak a word until they were a kilometer past the checkpoint, his foot gently finding the accelerator. That interaction, a greater moment of sustained tension than the violent execution in room 202, was the last obstacle. They crossed the Belgian border 30 minutes later, where they were met by a transport team that would carry the schematics onward, deep into the secure analysis labs of Mossad headquarters. The schematics arrived in Tel Aviv within 48 hours. AU supervised the debriefing. It was clinical, quiet, and required absolute recall of every sensory detail. No champagne was popped. No accolades were given. The cost of a nuclear program had been measured in the life of one crucial man, Dr. Zaki, and the psychological burden placed on Lena and the team. Lena, after providing a flawless report of the sequence of events in room 290, asked for a transfer to an entirely different division. She didn't want to talk about the incident. She only wanted to leave the ghosts behind. The official conclusion reported by the French police was swift and simple. The murder was a robbery gone wrong, probably orchestrated by low-level criminal elements preying on the wealthy foreigner. The scientist's importance was downplayed. The chaos in the lobby was treated as a separate incident, a perfect, clean ghosting. But the murder in Paris achieved its profound, immediate goal: intellectual chaos. The Iraqi nuclear program suffered an irreparable hemorrhage of knowledge and leadership. The disruption and uncertainty created by Zaki's disappearance delayed the project by many months. This single, silent strike laid the crucial groundwork for the more explosive chapter that followed. The time gained by the Mossad allowed the Israeli Air Force to refine their operational plans, target acquisition, and logistics for a conventional strike. In June 1981, Operation Opera was executed. Israeli F-16 fighter jets launched a successful air raid, finally destroying the Acidic reactor. The mission was kinetic, loud, and public, but it would have been exponentially riskier, perhaps impossible, had Dr. Zaki not been silenced a year earlier. The Mossad rarely seeks praise, or even acknowledgement. Their genius lies not in spectacular displays of force, but in making the crucial components, whether they be documents, weapons, or key personnel, simply vanish. Dr. Elias Zaki became a ghost, his death a forgotten footnote in the endless cycle of Parisian crime. But those who orchestrated his disappearance knew the truth. The real target was not Zaki's body, but the catastrophic future he represented. And that future they had successfully assassinated.